Former President Jacob Zuma has played his last card to try and avoid accounting for his actions at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry when he lost his bid to get the Deputy Chief Justice recused as the chairperson of the State Capture Commission. And in a fit of pique, Zuma stormed out without permission from the chair of the commission, Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, leaving him in contempt. Several civil society organizations have called for Zuma to be held accountable, among them the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, and I'm joined by its executive director, Wayne Duvenage, and then also, of course, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation's executive director, Nishan Bolton. Nishan, let me start with you. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation has issued a statement saying that former President Jacob Zuma must be held accountable and that the law must take its course. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I think we will await the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo's ruling on this, but I'm sure that he will take into account the relevant legislation to deal with somebody who basically absconded from the commission, and then to figure out how best to apply that in this current situation. Essentially, the Foundation's view is that the former president, in whatever way is legally necessary, must be compelled to come and complete his testimony at the commission.
Wayne, you also issued a statement saying pretty much the same thing. Former President Zuma had to be subpoenaed to be present. He didn't want to be. And then, of course, he launched his recusal bid. And now he has, in fact, suggested that because Justice Zondo ruled on the issue of recusal, his lawyer made a big brouhaha about the judge being a witness and the judge in his own, matter. But surely that is malafidance, given the fact that they took the matter to him. And if you bring an application for recusal, you have to take it to the person that you have a problem with. So to try and suggest that the judge is now in this invidious position, surely is not in good faith on the part of the Zuma defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is nothing short of his continuous Stalingrad tactics. We know and can see that he's doing everything he can not to have to answer questions at the commission. So it's uncalled for, and we believe that the book must be thrown at him to bring him back to answer the questions that the country wants to hear. Because, Jacob Zuma is central to state capture. He's been implicated by and fingered by a number of people who've given input to the commission, and now's the time. And by the way, he's refuted and rebuffed and pushed back at the commission from many requests for him to be there, and now it's time. He needs to answer questions, and we just cannot accept this behavior.
Nishan, let me bring you in. I mean, there is the Jacob Zuma Foundation, who's been the organization through which former President Jacob Zuma seems to be communicating his, approach to appearing before the commission. They have just launched a scathing attack on another member of the legal profession, Advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi, and they're saying that he must account for why he was in the Chief Justice's office during the time. Was he providing counsel to the Deputy Chief Justice? And if so, it would be a problem given that he has appeared for other witnesses. Do you think this is an attempt by the Jacob Zuma Foundation and by extension Jacob Zuma on the judiciary as a whole? Because he's literally called the second most powerful and senior judge in our country a liar to his face in terms of how he understood their relationship in the past. He did not ask the Deputy Chief Justice for permission. And now, of course, the foundation is going further and suggesting that senior members in the legal fraternity, seems to be complicit in this grand plot against him. Is this just another grasping at straws?
Completely. And without providing a shred of evidence. What is worrying, however, is that I read somewhere, and I'm not sure of its accuracy, is in their statement, or they claim if necessary, they will produce the recordings of that conversation. And between the Deputy Chief Justice Zondo and Tembeka. Now, if that is the case, it would be of huge concern. But I think we must also look at Zuma's comments about the Judicial Services Commission. And in his testimony, or Moses Sikekane's testimony, he implied that the former president manipulated the JSC into recommending former Zondo to the post of Deputy Chief Justice, and he influenced that. So what he's really implying is that even the Judicial Services Commission, to whom they now want to appeal, is a body that he has had control and influence over, again without a shred of evidence. And I think it's part of what we have become accustomed to, is make wild allegations, make them continuously, and hope that they then become fact, particularly amongst his own support base, whom he is actually trying to mobilize through the kinds of tactics that we have seen in this last week.
Now, this idea of putting in the public domain a set of information which essentially is unverified, which is not rooted in fact, I won't even call it fake news, it's just disinformation, right? Is obviously not unique to what Jacob Zuma is doing. We see it currently playing out in America, where the supporters of President Trump and Trump himself, without a shred of evidence, is making huge allegations about conspiracies and so on. Are you worried, Mr. Duvenage, that this populist trick by politicians, strong big men in politics like Zuma, like your Trumps, begins to incite in a body politic like South Africa the inability of people to tell the difference between a truth and a lie? I mean, what are they really busy with, and how dangerous is it for democracy in South Africa?
Well, it is dangerous because it gets too many people questioning and finding themselves in a situation where they're not sure of what the facts are now. And I think this is where it's important that the media and credible media just stays their ground and sticks to the issues and keeps feeding that information back to the public. And it's sad what we see happening at the SABC in your earlier story, that that institution now loses its ability to get those messages across to the public and the populace. So these are just tactics that are not new, and they're used by populist individuals who are really doing everything, and this is desperation now. Jacob Zuma is doing everything he can, and you'll see it with Ace Magashule as well and others, and the Deputy President, to deflect what the real issues are. So they slow the process down. It's all part of a quiver of arrows in this ability to, the Stalingrad tactics, as we keep saying, to stay out of court, to stay out of having to answer the questions. And it is sad, but we have to stick our ground and keep pressing these issues. This is the role of civil society and credible media, to make sure that people do not get away with the absolute nonsense and jargon that they put out there.
I want to come back to a point you made earlier, Nishan, and that's, of course, the issue of the threat by the Jacob Zuma Foundation to spill the beans. They're saying that they're going to play the recordings. Now, I mean, this is, in fact, the Jacob Zuma Foundation suggesting that they, or former President Jacob Zuma, is recording the conversations of the Deputy Chief Justice of the country in conversation with Tembeka Ngcukaitobi. And of course, this is at the heart of how Jacob Zuma has consistently fed the rumor mill of his supporter base, saying, I'm going to reveal all, I'm going to reveal all. But it lends itself to what is exactly in front of state capture, that President Jacob Zuma hollowed out state institutions for his own political, private, financial gain. I mean, on the strength of what would they be having the recordings of the Deputy Chief Justice? Should the police not go and investigate whoever chairs the Jacob Zuma Foundation and go to the former president and say, why are you saying that you've got recordings of the Deputy Chief Justice? Surely you are not allowed to tape his conversations?
I think it's it's an extremely serious issue, and something which I hope the Commission will be pursuing. But I also hope that the Jacob Zuma Foundation would be bold enough to make good on its threats. Let them reveal what it is that they think was discussed there. And my assumption would be that there is nothing. It would be in the normal course of a judge to meet with senior counsel in chambers, and really that's what he would have had at the Metro Center would have been considered to have been his chambers. And we don't know what the nature of those discussions were. And it's part of an ongoing strategy to find ways of casting this kind of blemish on Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, in very much the same way that they're saying that he met with the former president and discussed all kinds of things, which he has now refuted, and yet they claim to their version of the truth without actually providing evidence. And I think the call needs to be on them. Provide the kind of evidence which you claim that to back up these claims of conspiracy between the Deputy Justice Zondo and Tembeka. And I am almost guaranteed there is nothing there, which is why they have never carried out any of their threats in the past to spill the beans, despite making that a kind of threatening call for the last 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll look at the implications of Zuma's walkout for the rest of the inquiry. Don't go anywhere.